Some children are remembered for their designer clothes, others for the smell of food in their lunchboxes. Ana Clara was part of the second group. In a school where status seemed to be worth more than the contents of her backpacks, she just wanted to eat lunch in peace. But even that became a joke. Maybe you've been through this before, being different and as a result invisible or ridiculed. Whether it's because of your clothes, your accent, your backpack, or the homemade lunch your mother prepared with so much love. It's funny how sometimes what we carry with love becomes the target of ridicule. But what few realize is that these small gestures carry stories that touch us deeply, and that's exactly what happened in that cafeteria. What seemed like just another ordinary day ended with an unexpected gesture, coming from someone no one expected. A moment that became a lesson, an example, and maybe it will also become the inspiration you needed to understand the true value of your origins. Ana Clara wasn't the type of person who drew attention to herself with her perfectly brushed hair or designer sneakers. In fact, what stood out most about her was her silence. At just 12 years old, she had already learned to observe more than she spoke, perhaps out of shyness, or perhaps because life had taught her that, when in doubt, it was best to listen. A student at a respected private school, she carried not only her books, but also a world of stories in every look. Every day, her backpack was heavier because of a special detail, her lunchbox. While many of her classmates ordered expensive snacks on the app or ate at the school buffet, Ana took a simple meal from the bottom of her lunchbox, prepared with great care by her mother. It was rice and beans, well-seasoned chicken, and sautéed vegetables, the kind of food your mother would cook that warmed your heart just by smelling it. A homemade lunchbox that tasted like a hug. Ana's family was humble, but full of values. Her mother, a great cook, worked hard to keep her daughter in that school, even with a tight budget. And Ana knew this. She knew how much each monthly payment cost, each hand-washed uniform, each package of rice stretched out at the end of the month. That's why, even when the world outside seemed to mock her simplicity, she walked with her head held high, because deep down, in her heart, lived something that no amount of money could buy: love, pride of origins. The school where Ana Clara studied was a world apart. Air-conditioned buildings, sports courts with special flooring, laboratories that looked like something out of a science fiction movie. Everything there reeked of privilege. It was the kind of school where a parking space mattered almost as much as a test score, where being the son of a doctor, businessman, or politician was the least expected. In the midst of all this, Ana seemed like a sticker stuck in the wrong place in the album. The cafeteria was a faithful reflection of this reality. Modern counters, gourmet snacks, cold-pressed juices, snack machines with names in English. The smell in the air was of ostentation disguised as a healthy menu. Meanwhile, Ana took her blue styrofoam box out of the simple meal, made with what Mom had at home. No organic labels, but full of flavor and food with love. And of course, in this environment of appearances, the differences did not go unnoticed. Theric students, accustomed to extravagances, did not forgive what they considered to be outside the norm. And when they found someone like Ana Clara, who was out of the ordinary, the mockery was subtle, almost elegant, but still cruel. School bullying. There were no punches thrown there. There were sarcastic smiles, judgmental looks, and snickers at the next table. At first, Ana Clara thought it was all in her head, a little joke here, a whisper there. But over time, the comments became too frequent to be coincidence. "What's that smell?" some would mutter. Others would mock with irony. "Bringing the full PF today, huh?" Soon, the homemade lunchbox became a laughingstock, as if good food made by a loving mother was a reason to be ashamed. A prejudice as small as it is cowardly. The labels came like slingshots disguised as laughter. Poor people's food, workers' lunchbox, rice and beans smelling of garlic, they said, as if that would diminish anyone. Ana Clara tried to laugh along, so as not to seem fragile. But inside, each of those words left a mark. It was as if they were saying, "You don't belong here." And the worst part was that sometimes she started to believe it. From there, Anna withdrew. She stopped eating lunch with her colleagues. She looked for a more secluded corner, often pretending not to be hungry just to avoid stares. Humble girl, who was already shy, now became invisible, and all because of what should be a source of pride, food with love prepared by her mother. Little did she know that that lunchbox would still give an inspiring turn in your life and everyone around you. Donatida, the cafeteria aunt, wasn't the type to talk much, but she saw everything with experienced eyes. I had already seen many faces pass through that school, the spoiled, the arrogant, the insecure, and the invisible. And when she noticed Ana Clara, alone in a corner, with her head down and her closed lunchbox, she knew there was something more than shyness there. She approached slowly, sat down next to him, and without ceremony asked, "They were funny again, weren't they?" Anna tried to hide it with a wry smile, but her teary eyes gave it all away. It was then that Donacida told her own story. She also came from humble childhood, also brought food from home, and had also heard laughter in the corners. "But you know what?" she said, looking Anna in the eyes. "That mother's food, it was what sustained me in life. And it wasn't just in my stomach, no, it was in my heart. It was a simple conversation, but it fell like balm on the girl's soul." She left with her lunchbox in her hand and her heart a little lighter. Those words awakened something in her that was dormant, pride of origins. Maybe she still didn't have the courage to face the laughter, but now, at least, she knew that there was someone in that place who saw value where others saw shame. And sometimes, that's all we need, a gesture of empathy to remember that we are worth it even when the world insists on saying otherwise. That week, the school hallways were busier than usual. Posters were posted, chairs were lined up in the auditorium, and teachers were excited. Everyone was talking about the visit of a former student who had made it in life. His name was splashed across newspapers and TV shows, Rodrigo Moretti, one famous chef with award-winning restaurants in various parts of the world, a man who, it was said, had even served dishes to presidents. His presence there caused a mix of anticipation and vanity. Some students saw the lecture as an opportunity to take a selfie. Others saw it as another chance to show off their status. "My mother has already eaten at his restaurant," they would say, but few were truly interested in what he had to say. Ana Clara, for example, had no idea who he was. She was more concerned about remembering to take her lunchbox fork than listening to speeches about success. But what no one knew was that this man, between one Michelin star and another, still carried memories very similar to Anna's. He didn't come to talk about cooking, recipes, or profits. Rodrigo came to talk about family values, of overcoming prejudice, and how a simple flavor can change destinies. And it was exactly this message that would begin to transform everything, even what was said in the cafeteria. The lecture was over and the students returned to the break as usual. The famous chef, surrounded by teachers, walked through the cafeteria, smiling and exchanging greetings. It was then that something stopped him, a smell in the air, too familiar to ignore. It wasn't the school's fancy buffet, nor the options sold in the cafeteria. It was that typical aroma of mother's food, with real seasoning, the smell of home, of good memories. Instinctively, he followed the aroma to a more secluded corner, where Ana Clara, once again, was eating lunch alone. Kindly but directly, he asked, "Did you bring this? Who made this dish?" The girl, surprised and a little scared, answered shyly, "My mother." The chef paused, took a deep breath and smiled. "She cooks with soul. You know that, right?" There, in the middle of that environment where appearance was everything, unexpected recognition, coming from someone who truly understood the value of a simple meal. It was as if that aroma had pulled Rodrigo into a past he had kept dearly guarded, and Anna, without meaning to, had just opened that door with her homemade lunchbox. Without thinking twice, Rodrigo crouched down to the girl's level and asked, "Can I try it?" Ana Clara didn't know what to say. It was just rice, chicken, and vegetables. Nothing gourmet, nothing fancy. But he insisted, as if it were a chef's dish. He took a small spoonful, and closed his eyes as he tasted it. "It was like traveling back in time, just like my mother used to make," he murmured, with a sincere smile on his lips. The silence in the cafeteria was immediate. Everyone looked towards the scene. Some colleagues, previously mocking, widened their eyes. The famous chef, ignoring the school buffet with its wraps, colorful salads and imported names, was there, on his knees, extolling the food with love made in the kitchen of a simple house. What had previously been a source of jokes at that moment gained a different shine, a dignity that no one there expected to witness. "This," he said aloud, "is the taste of my childhood. This is where I came from, and this is why I am who I am." It was impossible not to be moved. Ana Clara, with her eyes wide open and her heart racing, could hardly believe the scene. She, who had always wanted to hide at snack time, was now the center of an exciting story, and the world was finally paying attention. Later, with the auditorium still full, the chef was called to close the event with a few final words. But instead of talking about his career, entrepreneurship, or achievements, Rodrigo took an unexpected turn. "Before I leave," he said into the microphone, "I need to tell you what really left a mark on me today." He paused, looked toward the audience, and pointed. "It was that girl over there, Ana Clara." The silence was instantaneous. He called her to the stage, to surprised looks, and some even embarrassed. With a firm and emotional tone, he said that he had also studied there years ago, and that for a long time he felt small for taking homemade lunchbox, just like Ana. "At the time, I was also mocked for bringing mother's food, while everyone else was buying snacks. But it was from that food, made with love, that my taste buds were born. It was what inspired me to cook, to value every seasoning, every gesture." The auditorium seemed trapped in a different time. For the first time, the family values, the pride of origins, a humble childhood, all of this was presented as a virtue, not as a shame. Ana, standing next to the chef, listened to everything with tears in her eyes. Rodrigo concluded with a phrase that echoed, "Never hide where you came from, because that is exactly what will take you where you want to go." And at that moment, no one laughed at the lunchbox anymore. The next day, Ana arrived at school as usual, backpack on her shoulders, lunchbox in hand, and her steps discreet. But something was different. The looks were no longer mocking, but curious, even admiring. A classmate who had never spoken to her before came up to her and said, "I want to sit with you for lunch today." Another one asked, a little embarrassed, if she could try a little of the home-cooked food. An inspiring turn had begun. A lunchbox, which was once a source of mockery, now became a symbol of something greater, of affection, of culture, of values that don't come with a price tag. Even the teachers were talking about the chef's speech and how it had touched everyone. It was as if a veil had fallen from the eyes of many there, and what had once been invisible was now recognized as precious. Anne didn't have to change who she was. The world began to see her differently. Faced with the repercussions, the school's management decided to take action. They created a project called Flavors of Origin, where students would be invited to bring typical dishes from their families, share stories, and reflect on what really forms our identity. It was the beginning of a social transformation within the walls of that school. And it all started with a brave girl, one homemade lunchbox and one gesture of empathy that crossed the cafeteria like a real bolt of lightning. When she got home that afternoon, Ana Clara dropped her backpack on the floor and ran to the kitchen, where the familiar smell of garlic and onion browning in olive oil announced that dinner was almost ready. Without saying anything, she hugged her mother tightly. Donna Lourdes was startled. "What's wrong, my dear?" But Ana only said, "Nothing. I just wanted to thank you for everything." Mom didn't really understand, but she smiled with tears in her eyes. Food with love has this, speaks without needing words. They sat together at the table. The next day's lunch was already being prepared, with the same care as always. Only now, that simple meal, which was once carried with shame, would be carried with pride of origins. Ana finally understood that her story, with all its simplicity and strength, was exactly what made her unique. She didn't need to hide anything. On the contrary, it was there, in that detail that made her different, that her true strength lay. And so we conclude this exciting story with a powerful reminder. It is not always the loudest who changes the world, but the one with strong roots and a sincere heart. Because in the end, as the final narration says, sometimes what embarrasses you today is exactly what will make you stand out tomorrow. How many times have you failed to show who you really are for fear of what others will think? Maybe you've also hidden some part of yourself, your origins, your way of speaking, your favorite food, thinking that it made you lesser. But what if I told you that it's exactly this detail that can make you stand out the most? Ana Clara didn't need to change anything. She didn't get richer. She didn't learn to assert herself by shouting, nor did she try to appear to be something she wasn't. What changed was the way she looked at people who finally saw the value she always had. And now I ask you, what are you hiding inside out of shame? That might be what will make you stand out from the crowd. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel, activate the bell to receive more content like this, and comment below. Have you ever been judged for being different or better? What part of your story did you learn to love, even when others didn't value it? Your answer may inspire someone today.